Have you ever noticed how the more we understand the fundamentals of something, the better we are at fixing it? Whether it's a computer glitch or a tricky math problem, a bit of basic knowledge can go a long way. No matter what you're into, coding, sports, art, or math, there are core basics to everything. Mastering these fundamentals isn't just about making stuff work. It's about making it work well in any situation. As a society, we spend a lot of time learning about the world around us, but not a lot of time understanding the essential science about how we work as people. When we understand some of this basic science behind some of our own anatomy, why we think, feel, and act the way we do, we can focus more on what we can control and spend less time on what we can't. This means less stress getting lost in the unknown and more time succeeding in all areas of life. Think about how much more time, energy, and stress you'd experience in your work right now if you didn't know the basics. Engineering, project management, coding, writing an email that isn't going to get you fired. Understanding this stuff isn't just about feeling good and feeling productive. It helps us connect and work better with others, which is exactly what the research is saying is needed in today's workforce. We know how valuable these basics are for everything else, but largely, as a society, we don't learn the basics of our brain and physical anatomy functions that are driving forces of our thoughts, emotions, interactions, and behaviors. And there isn't a systemic approach to learning these need to know, like learning your ABCs or your 1, 2, 3s, like there are for many other subjects. Fortunately, though, what you can benefit from understanding can be learned fairly quickly, and that's what we're diving into today. There's nothing to lose and a whole lot to gain, so let's get into the science of the human experience to unlock our full potential. The top skills employers often seek when it comes to hiring are leadership, ability to work on teams, written and verbal communication skills, and problem-solving skills. What we're about to cover will support all of these areas and beyond. And fortunately, a little bit of information packs a lot of power and is applicable wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and with whomever you're with. Our first stop is the brain. Our brain is the most complex object known in the universe. And fortunately, we don't need to know everything about our brains to function well. But there's a few things we do know at this point in history that can be simplified to help us do more thriving and less just surviving within our human condition. To simplify and organize the processes we're about to talk about, let's break down the brain into 3 main areas. The brainstem at the bottom, the subcortical region in the middle, and the cortex on the top. We'll call the brainstem the reptilian brain because it's the oldest part. The earliest life forms on this planet, microscopic microbes, showed up around 3.7 billion years ago. Pretty cute, right? Next, we have the subcortical region, which we'll nickname the mouse brain or the mammalian brain. This part is tied to mammalian phases of evolution. Mammals have been around for about 200 million years. And finally, there's the cortex, the primate brain. It's the newest part of our brains, evolutionarily speaking, and it's about 3 million years old. By understanding these 3 areas, we can get a better grasp of how our brain works and understand how those areas of our brain that are evolutionarily the oldest continue to have a strong foothold in our initial automatic functioning, while those that are youngest give us some unique innate human super abilities that can be strengthened like any skill. Because of our need for survival, our brains are constantly scanning for threats, and we call this a negativity bias. That is, we think automatically and reactively more negatively than we do positively as our first inclination. And we may notice thoughts in the forms of automatic judgments, opinions, perspectives, interpretations, and even gut feelings or instincts, physiological judgments. We're just going to call this whole category automatic thoughts. We have fears and a number of ways of describing fears. Worries about the future, anxieties about the present, regrets about the past, catastrophes or worst case scenarios, apprehension about the future, concerns. Our brains are wired to categorize for fast retrieval and associations. Long story short, we're all built to be thinking and judging machines. You can't stop yourself from initial thoughts and judgments. You just get to decide sometimes what to do after you're aware of them. The more our brains link things together in similar buckets or categories, the easier it is to retrieve that information. Old habits die hard, they say, and that's because it's hard to stop linking associations once a brain is used to doing it. But awareness allows for an opportunity for redirecting. But more on this later. We're also designed to protect our own egos and habits. We call this easing cognitive dissonance. So if a situation or an interaction we have makes us feel bad about ourselves or our position, our brain wants us to feel better about ourselves, and so we'll send automatic thoughts also to defend our positions, our habits, points of view, opinions, and beliefs about ourselves. Our anatomy is built to seek the fastest, easiest solutions. Our body wants to feel better as quickly as possible, expend the least amount of caloric energy to get a good enough destination, and the more overwhelmed it feels, the less it wants to consider options that prolongs relief or expends more calories. So, our bodies are often seeking short-term relief, and this can often throw long-term benefits, solutions, and goals out the door. All this automatic, reactive, or even negativity bias thinking isn't bad, despite the name. It has a purpose to A, tend to threats, challenges, and obstacles, and to B, help us problem solve solutions. What cannot be so great about our reactive negativity bias specifically, though, is lack of awareness of these automatic thoughts. When we aren't aware of these often very quiet and subtle thoughts and feelings, we can't be aware that this thinking is just for informational purposes and isn't reliably based on facts. Like a messenger delivering a note for a reference, it's meant to be looked at and considered, but alone, it doesn't tell the whole story. When we don't use higher order thinking, which we'll discuss soon, messages turn into emotions. These emotions drive urges to act without considering our automatic thoughts and feelings. This can lead us to jump to conclusions and act on these urges rather than taking the time to see beyond our initial assumptions, which are often inaccurate. So, as a reminder, the function of automatic thoughts is to A, tend to threats, challenges, and obstacles, and to B, help us problem solve solutions as messengers, advisors, and defenders. But without awareness, the defender just takes over and does A all of the time. And the advisors don't get a word in edgewise to problem solve the best possible solutions. Remember, your brain is scanning for possible threats that may be real or perceived. If we're just believing whatever automatically pops up in our heads and bodies all the time, it can lead to more problems than not. Thoughts and emotions are messengers of information, and very helpful ones too, but they are not, in their own, facts. Our bodies think we're literally going to fight a woolly mammoth or run away from a predator every time it sees a threat. Now, if we're still naked scavengers just trying to not freeze to death, get eaten, or starve, this would make sense. But the problem is now in the 21st century that we have these reactions many times a day that often aren't really threatening our survival. They are possibly or perceivably threatening. Many times, they aren't actually threatening at all. Having complex reasoning skills tend to lead to better outcomes across the board. Being less reactive is better for our physical, mental, emotional, and social health, and can help us work smarter and not harder. Your arteries will thank you. Now to get into our negativity bias takeaways. It's not unreasonable to think that you may have noticed some automatic, judgmental, negativity bias-esque thinking before, during, and even after the last activity. It's not a matter of good or bad if you became aware of those automatic thoughts, but if you notice them, bring some curiosity from your own experience as we review these next points. Negativity bias means that we're all built to be risk-averse, but it doesn't mean whatever your body and brain thinks is a risk actually is. We want to treat automatic thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, and judgments as information, not facts. Awareness, acceptance, and choice is a motto to remember. What we can do about this is learn how to be aware of our automatic and reactive negativity bias judgments, practice a curiosity around them rather than a blanket belief, and intentionally choose what to do next. Awareness and acceptance of initial reactivity allows us to move on often better and faster. Accept that you had those thoughts, those automatic judgments. You can never stop yourself from having initial automatic thoughts, actions, and emotions. However, once you're aware, and the sooner you're aware of these automatic thoughts, actions, and emotions, the more you can regulate through them in a way that is more proactive than reactive.